wonder he's fleeing after that introduction. He didn't know what he was talking about. Do I need this microphone?
You want a handheld one?
That's the guy. I'm kind of one of these people who wanders around sometimes. At 16 years old, I had a life-changing, catastrophic event that occurred in my life. Well, catastrophic at least through the lens of a 16-year-old where everything was a big deal and everything was catastrophic. My parents called me and my siblings in my sophomore year in high school in Dallas for a family visit. I was born in Dallas, raised in Dallas, lived in Dallas all my life. Most of my family was in Dallas. Certainly all my friends were in Dallas. That was my world back when I was 16. And my parents informed us that we were going to move in January and we were going to be going to a new high school next year in a place called Mineral Wells, Texas. Well, when you're 16, going from Dallas to Mineral Wells is a big transition. I had no idea where Mineral Wells was. Some of you in this room are young enough to know there wasn't a Google back then. I had to get a road map and find out where Mineral Wells was. And what I was really interested in was how long it was going to take me to drive from Mineral Wells back to Dallas. I know we got a lot of law enforcement here. I could do it pretty quick back in those days. So I could see my friends. Sure enough, I show up at Mineral Wells High School in January and I don't know a soul. But you know, when you're in high school, you're young, you get involved in sports, you get involved in clubs, and you quickly meet people. There was one young lady. Her name was Cindy Roberts. Cindy was an extraordinary young lady, but she was different than the rest of the students. Cindy Roberts in Mineral Wells, Texas, was the first person in my life I had ever met that had polio. Cindy had the leg braces, the crutches. Her dad had rigged her car up so she could drive. And what was extraordinary about Cindy was she went about living the life of an ordinary 16-year-old girl and never one time, not one time, ever complained about polio and her situation. As it would, in those 2.5 years later, I graduated from high school and we all, classmates, scatter around the country. I went to the Navy, came out of the Navy, came back to go to college. And you know, fast forward through a career in the technology world, I ultimately found myself having another catastrophic, changing event. My first wife died. And when she died, I decided to change careers. I went into the financial services business and once again found myself in a community where I knew no one, just down 1431 in Lago Vista. But this time I had a couple of things going for me. One is there was a Google. I had never been in a service club. I could not have told you the difference between a Lions Club, a Kiwanis Club, and a Rotary Club other than what I learned by Googling what they were. I'd been in this capsulated corporate world for all those years. So I went and I found out there was a Lions Club and a Rotary Club in Lago Vista. I read about them. They sounded good. But this time I had something else going for me. My friend Jim was a retired pastor from that community. And I called up Jim. Jim was someone that I'd known for 30 years. Someone whose advice and counsel I trusted impeccably. And I said, Jim, I explained my situation to my friend. I said, I'm going to have an office in Lago Vista. There's a Lions Club and a Rotary Club. Which one should I join? Without hesitation, unequivocally, he said, join the Lions Club. So I had this habit, having been the financial planning manager at IBM, is asking when people give me advice why they're giving it to me. I said, well, Jim, why the Lions Club? Well, Jerry, you told me your goal was to come, you came to Lago Vista was to meet as many people as quickly as you could. The Lions Club is the big club in town. The mayor, the city council, probably the school superintendent. They're all in the Lions Club. You want to meet people? Join the Lions Club. What about the Rotary Club, Jim? I don't know any much about them. They're about 15 people, and I know they're nice people, but I don't know really anything about what they do. but they're small, Jerry. You want to meet people, Lions Club. About 2 weeks later, had a client in my office, and after we got through meeting one another and talking about her accounts, she leaned forward and said, Jerry, I am the president-elect of the Lions Club. We would love to have you come visit our meetings. And I'm euphoric. Not only am I going to get invited to the Lions Club where all the movers and shakers in the community are, I'm getting invited by the president-elect. I'm on the fast track. That club met every 2 weeks, alternate weeks in the evening. And they invited me at my first meeting, they invited me back, and they invited me back, and I started going. They were nice people. The only problem I ever had in that Lions Club was one evening I sat in someone's chair that had been sitting in that chair for 20 years, and everybody glared at me. And the other thing in Lago Vista, there was Fred. Fred was one of those clients where you knew to the community, you call up an existing client of the firm, and you want to meet with them, you want to introduce yourself. First I called Fred, and I called Fred, and I called Fred, and finally one day Fred answered, Jerry, I'm just too busy. I don't have time to come in and talk to you. Well, Fred, I'll get back with you. And I did, and I did, and I did, and he never answered the phone again. Then one day, my assistant walked in. Said, Jerry, Fred is going to come and take you to lunch tomorrow at 11:45. First, I really want to make sure she and I were talking about the same Fred. Then the big question, of course, in Lago Vista, some of you know all about Lago Vista, are we going to go to the Sonic to eat? Or are we going to go to the Mexican food restaurant at 1431 in Lowman Forest? Because there wasn't any other places. Until I discovered Fred was taking me to his country club. Fred took me to his Rotary club at his country club. And they did the same thing those Lions did. They invited me back the next week, and the next week, and the next week. Then I found myself, I was newly married at this time. I'm going to the Lions Club every 2 weeks in the evening for a couple hours, and I'm going to the Rotary Club every week. And finally my wife said, get a life, make a decision. It was at that Rotary Club I learned about Rotary's efforts since 1985 to eradicate polio in the world, and knew that I wanted to be part of an organization that was help to eradicate a disease so there would be no more 16-year-old Sidney Roberts like I knew in Mineral Wells, Texas. That seed that had been planted 40 years ago blossomed. So there's a couple of takeaways from my talk. You want to grow the Rotary Club of Cedar Park, you want to grow the Rotary Club of Burnet, any Rotary Club, we have to become a Fred. We all have to become a Fred. We have to invite people. But not everyone is meant to be a Rotarian. You want to invite people that share the same kind of values and have the potential to become a Rotarian. And if they say no that first time, don't worry about it. That doesn't mean no. It just means it's not convenient right now. Ask me again in 6 months. You may have heard Rotary in North and South America has a membership issue. The issue is not bringing members into Rotary. It's keeping them. When you're asked what Rotary is, because if you tell someone you're a Rotarian, chances are they don't have no idea what Rotary is. They may have heard of it. Oftentimes the answer is, we're a humanitarian organization. Barry Rasmussen's the international president of Rotary this year, and he has a little different twist on the story. He says the Red Cross is a humanitarian organization. You give them money and they go out and do humanitarian work. He says Rotary is a membership organization and our product is the Rotarians in our club. And if we don't take care of the Rotarians in our club, we'll go away. We're a membership organization that does humanitarian and service work in our communities and around the world. And just like some of you are in business, you have a product. Our product as Rotary leaders is you. It's our club members. So often in our Rotary clubs, we'll bring people in, we'll collect their dues, we'll sit them down in a chair, and if you're a big enough club, you might put them on a committee. But what we fail to do is ask them what their passion is, what gets them excited, what do they want to get out of Rotary, how do they want to make a difference. And if we don't do that, we'll look around in 12 months or 24 months, we'll find out they slipped out the back door. Membership is a daunting task. Sometimes it just seems overwhelming. You're a good-sized club in this district. You're the 9th largest club in this district. I'll share a story with you. Last year, in one of our Rotary clubs about this size, a little bit larger, 100 people, grew 20%. They grew 20 members. So what were they doing that my Rotary club wasn't doing? They started doing monthly service projects and advertising them in their community. And non-Rotarians came to those service projects and joined with them, and they liked what they saw. Then they started coming to that Rotary Club's meeting. And here's the hard part, the striking part. They asked to join Rotary. Rotary didn't ask them to join. And the first thing that president of that club did was ask them what their expectation was, what was their passion. And some of the service projects that were done in this club last year were done based on what their new members did. A club in our district this year, on July 1st of this year, started using that same model. A club of 19 people that has 32 members 9 weeks into the year. We have to find out what our Rotarians want and provide the opportunity for them to have the service, to make the contributions they want to make in the communities, Leander and Cedar Park or Burnet or wherever it is. And maybe we'll light that spark in someone. And then when they get excited about being a Rotarian and being involved in making a change in their community, the next thing is they'll learn about our foundation and get excited about that. But the problem with our foundation is we often talk about it incorrectly. Both membership and foundation, we often talk about how much we grew in membership or how much we gave in money. That's not the metric. You know, I have a quantitative background. I like that. And that's necessary for administrative work. The power of Rotary coupled with the Rotary Foundation is how we give hope to the hopeless and how we make lasting change in our communities and the world. In this district, we have a very strong and proud tradition of supporting the Rotary Foundation. But not everyone does, and that's all right. The question is why? First of all, I don't believe it's an affordability issue. I don't believe it's $2 a week to be a sustaining member. And I certainly don't believe it's because we don't care. It's because we as Rotary leaders have failed you and failed Rotarians to explain what we do as Rotarians and why we do it. When I joined that little bitty Rotary Club in Lago Vista, Texas, we didn't have a big PowerPoint presentation about Rotary. I sat down with the club president. He said, "Jerry, we want you to contribute to the foundation and be a sustaining member." I didn't even know what the foundation was. Well, that's what a sustaining member was. He said, "Jerry, we want you to contribute $2 a week, $100 a year." Now, I did study engineering at Texas A&M, and I could take 100 and divide by 52, knew what he was asking was another $2 a week. Well, I was stopping at the Starbucks at Cypress and Lake Creek Boulevard in Cedar Park every day, buying a $4 non-fat latte. So if on Fridays I just want a coffee instead of a latte, I can afford that. But I had no idea, no earthly idea what this thing called the Rotary Foundation or what it did. It would only be over time that I start putting the dots together and seeing the mosaic. So does that $2 a week I was giving, I had no idea what it was going for make a difference? Was it important? This year, 174 million people will contract a preventable disease that's had a prevention for over 200 years. 174 million people, 6 times the population of the state of Texas. And of those 174 million people, 1 million will die. A population of the city of Austin, Texas this year from malaria. That $2 a week, I had no idea where it was going, but about 10 mosquito nets. That $2 a week gave 6 children polio vaccine so they wouldn't become a cripple. That $2 a week bought 2 water filters, $50 each, for villages in Guatemala and Belize that are only accessible by water, And most of the deaths are from waterborne diseases. I bought a sewing machine for a lady in Donley, Honduras, that with a little bit of training how to use that sewing machine, she started making things to help support her family and give her human dignity. You know, I was a little kid in Dallas, Texas. My dad told me that if I collected those pennies, picked those pennies up, I could get $1 and I could go buy a soda and ice cream. At my age, I probably bought 2 sodas and 2 ice creams back then with $1. When we get involved in the foundation, or Rotarians get involved in the foundation, we give hope to the hopeless, and we pool together. So did that $2 a week make a difference? If you were one of those 10 people that didn't die of malaria that year, it was a life versus death decision. If you're one of those 6 children, you didn't become a Sidney Roberts in Mineral Wells, Texas, that had to live life through a crippling disease. So yes, I think it makes a difference. I think we fail to tell the Rotary story, and it's incumbent on us to tell the Rotary story and why we're Rotarians. In January this year, I attended what's called the International Assembly. It's where all 539 company governors from 200 countries came together for a week of training. They call it International Assembly, we call it Charm School. And on that Sunday night, that first night, all 539 governors and some of their spouses and some of the Rotary brass were all gathered in an auditorium. And we're waiting for the theme speech for the new international president, who's Barry Rassin from the Bahama Islands. And by the way, I will tell you that the theme speech, or the theme for the next Rotary year, is a better kept secret than when I was in naval intelligence and some of our national security secrets. So Barry comes on stage. He's a very imposing individual. He's about 6'5", and the guy that was president of the Rotary before him was 6'4", so I knew at that time I'd never be international president of Rotary. And Barry starts his theme talk to tell us about what his goals and his theme is for the year, and toward the end, Barry made a quote. It was a quote that I found uncomfortable. It saddened me because I knew it was true. This is a quote from the international president. We've got too many clubs that don't have the knowledge or the motivation to have an impact. Clubs that don't even know what we're doing on a global level. Clubs that don't know about our programs or our foundation. That don't even know how to get involved. So as Rotarians, this is our responsibility. It's incumbent on us, not only on the new members we bring into our clubs, but sometimes educating some of the older members, older in Rotary, not old in age, about the power of Rotary and what we do and how we change human lives. We have to tell the story. I had a meeting with your board this morning, and you do great work, and you do great work efforts to make sure the community in Burnet, through social media and the newspaper and all that, to share what you do in this community. But I think the most powerful way you and I share the story of Rotary is when we sit down with family members, church members, our golfing buddies, whoever it is, and we tell them why we're in Rotary and what Rotary does. Tell you, 2 things happened to me just before the start of this Rotary year. One is I went to the post office in Austin to mail a badge like this to a club president in Giddings, Texas. I got up to the front of the queue and I was talking to the postal clerk, and she's leaning forward. I know it's not because of my good looks. And she says, I'm trying to read your pen. I said, oh, that is the theme pen for Rotary. Be the inspiration. Do you know what Rotary is? And of course, the answer is no. I've heard of it, maybe. Now, there's 5 people behind me wanting to mail their packages, and they don't really give a darn if Jerry Chapman explains to this postal clerk about Rotary. So all I did was say to her, we're 1.2 million people in over 200 countries, making a difference in our local communities and the global communities, and have a plan for world peace. And I gave her my card. I said, go to the website, look it up. Have any questions, email me. I don't have any expectation this postal clerk will ever email me, but maybe the next time she sees a Rotary wheel, she'll at least know what Rotary is. One Sunday morning, on my way to church, early, I still go to Starbucks, different one this morning. I had some notes about a talk I had to give, so I wanted to stop and read through my notes and make sure, kind of get my thoughts arranged. As it would be, I'd run into an old neighbor. We'd play, what have you been doing? What have you, we're playing catch up on what we've been doing. He'd changed jobs and he was all excited. I told him about what had happened since the last time I saw him, and I told him about what I was doing in Rotary. John Martin said to me, I don't have time to be a Rotarian, but I like what you guys do, and gals, and I'll write you a $1,000 check. Where do I send it? Who do I make it out to? I'll be honest. That is the only $1,000 check in my life I've ever received for telling someone my Rotary story. But when we share our story, it might be that spark that changes that person's life. There's an excellent YouTube video called Why Rotary by a gentleman named past District Governor Kelly Atkinson from Salt Lake City that was at our district assembly this year as my guest speaker. He goes through a very eloquent 32-minute speech, and you go to YouTube and listen to the whole 32 minutes, but in there, Kelly has an elevator speech. If I come ask you what you do, you have an elevator speech about what you do in your business. Kelly's elevator speech for Rotary is, I'm a member of the largest organization in the world that's non-governmental, non-political, that has a plan for world peace. Then Kelly, he says, I don't say anything. If they don't ask me what that organization is, they probably weren't ready for Rotary anyway. We have to tell the story. Helen Keller said, alone we can do so little, but together we can do so much. Rotarians change lives. Lasting change we give to people, many people who will never know, and we'll give them hope. I want you to be proud to be a Rotarian in Burnet, Texas this year. I want all of our Rotarians throughout the district to understand about Rotary and be proud to be that Rotarian. You know, as a little kid in Dallas, Texas, one of my favorite TV programs was Superman. Some of you may be too young to know about that, but Superman was Clark Kent, and Clark Kent could go into a phone booth or into a closet and change into his cape and leap tall buildings at a single bound. You don't have any tall buildings in Burnet, so you don't have to worry about that. But what we can do as Rotarians is we can transcend those barriers, those impediments to so many other organizations, impediments of politics, religion, cultural biases, and we can join with that 1.2 million Rotarians around the world in 200 countries to change our local communities and change the world. It's our choice. It's my choice, it's my club's choice, it's your choice, it's your club's choice. It's the same thing is true with all the clubs in the district. It's what we want our Rotary legacy to be. So be proud to be a Rotarian this year. Continue making the difference you do in your community here, inspire others, and have a lot of fun. We talked about socials this morning at your board meeting, so stay tuned for more fun. So anyway, I appreciate your time today. I appreciate your attention, and I'm really humbled to be your district governor this year. Thank you.
I have several of these, but you don't have one that has.
You're absolutely right. I don't have one from Burnet.
So on behalf of Rotary Club of Burnet, thank you so
Very
much
much.
for coming.
So proud of what you guys know, and ladies.
No, thank you very much. You never know what event, large or big in life, that can completely change your direction. So great inspirational speech that you gave. And Rich and Jim, thank you for joining us today for our board meeting as well. So, Ken, will you lead us in the four-way test, please?
Things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
That was one of the rough drafts of what I said.
foundation.